Good morning, PT Breakfast Club. Tony Maritato here with my host, Dave Kittle. Dave, you're right. I'm in the office. We're going to test out some new locations. I'm at one of my clinics today. The thing is, we have a full caseload out in the gym, so I'm sequestered here in the office just to protect patient privacy. Thursday, I might try to get out to my other clinic, and that's really where I want to set up my YouTube studio because I can be out in the gym. We're almost never treating patients at the other clinic. All the action happens here. So I just want to try some different setups. How are you doing today?
I'm feeling great. All is well. My son only needed one feed overnight. I was committed to doing two. I thought I was going to come on here and be less than, but I am pumped I was coming on here no matter what, because I'm a gamer. I'm coming on no matter what. But he only needed one feed at like 3 a.m. So I'm pumped. I mean, nothing. I'm at the peak happiness of today, maybe.
How many weeks old is he right now?
He's like 4.5, almost coming up on 5 weeks.
Wow. I remember, the first 2 weeks, like they had that tiny little whisper cry. And then it seems like somewhere between 4 and 12 weeks, that cry turns into a man cry. I remember so many nights when we had our first son, I would wake up and I would we had a bedside pack and play kind of set up there. And I would check to see if he's breathing. I was so crazy about like anything going wrong. I remember those experiences.
I'm in the thick of it.
So, I've got like 50 topics for us today. Is there anything off the top of your mind that you want to talk about or touch on, or any of the ones that I sent you before I just run into our list of topics?
I think we should touch briefly on the hands-on assessment evaluation part of a physical therapist interview.
Yeah.
I have some comments. I know we talked about some other topics behind the scenes. Maybe we start with that and then we go through some of the other things that we talked about over Messenger.
Well, let me do this. Let me tease. In the second part of today, we're going to talk about paid communities, because paid communities is a huge topic right now. I've got a ton of resources for you guys, some people I can direct you to on YouTube with lots of free content about paid communities. I know that I've wanted and have done paid communities, you as well. It's got a bad rap for sure. I think it could be done ethically and properly and very profitably. But yeah, let's start. This is crazy. This is shocking to me. And this is some of the stuff that I will post, and I will not expect the kind of response that I get. And then I'm just blown away. So for context, I was scrolling Facebook the other day. I saw a post that came up. It basically said, it was an anonymous post. And it basically said, what do you guys think of an employer who wants you to do a co-treat or a treatment so that they can assess your clinical skills? I mean, that was the gist of it. I'll look up the original quote if I need to. And in this particular group, it wasn't one of my groups. It's a great group, but there were like 63 comments. One was like, yeah, I have no problem with that. It makes sense. All the rest were negative. All the rest were, no, they can't do that. That's ridiculous. You have your licensure. You've passed your boards. They should expect, that's what the next 90-day trial period is for, is to assess how you're doing. Just so much anger, so much animosity. And this is typically what I see. This is why I've kind of gone full 180 back to, maybe I'm not going to hire another therapist, because there's so much anger and distrust on the employed therapist side to the employer. I don't want to put myself on the firing line with that kind of stuff. But tell me what your thoughts are. What are you thinking?
So with interviews, I mean, so John, thank you. John said, congratulations. Thank you, John. John, the therapy man, here live somewhere on, I guess, YouTube he is. So let's say I was interviewing John, and now John's a PTA, but it doesn't matter if he's a PT or PTA. For this topic, we do a 15-minute phone screen. And then we do a 60-minute Zoom interview since we're remote, mobile, and we don't have a brick and mortar. So 60-minute Zoom interview, John, or whoever the candidate is. And that we go over, I ask questions about, like, we can get into that another time, but kind of like the personality, the core values, to their core values and their mission and vision, that type of stuff. Does that match what we have, like our core values? I ask questions about, tell me about a time when you had a challenging boss or manager or coworker or a patient or a challenging complex clinical case, whatever. You can go into all those questions. The next step for us is a 60-minute in-person interview. Since we don't have a brick and mortar office here in New York City, I have to ask one of my friends and colleagues who has a clinic to use their, extra treatment room and treatment table. I obviously, I've offered to pay that therapist, my buddy, or I take them out for lunch and dinner or whatever. So we square that away. But the therapist and I, we meet at that clinic, and they evaluate me. They know this ahead of time. So John, I would say, hey, John, for this, we're going to meet up at this clinic location. We agree to a time, date and time. Here's exactly what we're going to do. I'm going to give you a fake case. It's either going to be orthopedic or neurological condition, 55-year-old with sciatica or an 85-year-old with Parkinson's, and this type of a presentation. I'll even print it out on a piece of paper. They can read it before we start. So it's very similar to school. And then they evaluate me as the fake patient. We do that for like 30 to 45-ish minutes. And then there's time for debriefing, and I kind of give them some assessment and some feedback on, like, hey, most of the time it went well. Here's some things that, like, I maybe would have done differently, or maybe, you didn't have time, and maybe you were a little nervous, you overlooked or whatever. And I told you, Tony, I didn't do this during COVID because of COVID. I was just onboarding therapists, and they were just going and treating patients, and I had no idea their clinical skills other than whatever I got from a Zoom call. And I did join places in New Jersey and Brooklyn that were bigger practices that did not have me do this. So I know one of the comments, I think, said, it depends on the size of the practice. It depends on their model, if they're corporate or not, maybe, whatever. But if it's a therapist-owned practice, like if it's mine, maybe even like Tony style, or that have 3 to 5 therapists, or 3 to 7 or 10. I know a lot of practice owners, even at that size, will still do this. They still will have the in-person interview where the therapist evaluates the owner or some of the team members. That could be other staff physical therapists. So those physical therapists feel the manual therapy or the intervention or whatever, and then report back. Sometimes it's the front desk person, and sometimes it's like the front desk person actually has neck pain or some issue, or it's a fake case. But I love it, and I didn't experience it on the therapist side, but if I did, I would totally be fine with it. The fact that DPTs have animosity or hostility towards it is bonkers, because that owner, that person hiring you, wants to ensure that you have some level of clinical skills. And if you do, then you should be fine, right? I don't know. What do you think, Tony?
Yeah, it's the thing. Like, I go back to, in one breath, somebody's going to say, well, I'm a professional and you have to, trust that I have my skills and I know what I'm doing. That same person in a week is going to be mauling another therapist for doing a terrible job because the patient left that other therapy clinic and came to them. I think the clinics that don't do it, now I'm going to disclaimer here, I don't generally do it, but the clinics that don't do it, it's not about size. I know clinics that are 20 therapists deep, and they will still test and examine and review a new candidate's ability. It's the clinics that are selling a commoditized service, right? I sell largely a commoditized service. Therapeutic exercise, manual therapy, they're commodities, they're universal. It almost doesn't matter. The saying is, it's like pizza, even when it's bad, it's good. The insurance company is just buying a commoditized service. I do look for personality first and foremost. I look for a happy person. Are you genuinely happy? Are you genuinely satisfied? Don't come to me looking to find happiness. Bring your happiness to my team and my clinic, and we're going to do amazing. So even though I don't actually look at that, I also don't think doing like a mock, treatment on another therapist or something has any legitimacy. It's always so different. Like in school, labs are a total waste of time. It's ridiculous. Um, I do think that there is a place in every practice model that you get a therapist to do a couple of treatments. I don't care if you pay them, I'm not going to ask somebody to come work for me for free. I'll pay you a PRN rate. Come work a 4-hour shift. Let me see how you interact. Let me see what you do. Let me see what's important to you. Because on an interview, it's basically just a blind date. You're going to tell me all the things you think I want to hear, but that doesn't give me any real like visibility into what happens when you have a challenging case. What happens when you have an angry patient? How do you diffuse the situation? Can you relate to that person on a personal level? But I mean, it is what it is. I understand the battle between the employer and the employee. I think it's unfortunate. I think that's probably one of the biggest Achilles heels in our profession, is just there's still such a huge population of employed therapists that believe the insurance company is against them, the employer is against them, everybody wants to take advantage of them. And you can't be like a professional and operating at the highest level if you have that kind of feeling against all the people that are trying to work with you. So what happened? Did I get cut off? I got kicked out.
No, I heard you talking the whole time.
Okay. Earlier, just a minute ago before you picked up, I lost my connection, but I'm back. Liability was a big question. So everybody was saying, well, what about the liability? What if you do something to hurt the patient or something negative happens? My understanding is, again, I would pay the person. I wouldn't bring them on a 90-day probationary period. I would pay the person for a 4-hour block of time. They would be just like any contract therapist. By default, they would be under my liability insurance from the company. I would be paying them as a 1099 contractor unless I was hiring them as a W-2 employee. I've never heard of there being a problem with anything like that. Now, same thing with HIPAA privacy. They're going to sign the privacy information. They're going to be effectively no different than hiring a contractor to come in and cover sick leave for somebody for an afternoon. All of those things are easily addressed. It's just the weirdness on the insecurity of feeling like you're being judged. I think it comes down to an insecurity issue.
I was also kind of reflecting either last night when you sent that to me or early when we were just mentioning it at the top of the show. If there's a difference between like the in-network clinics versus the out-of-network or the cash clinics where the patient is paying more out of pocket, which is similar to what you just said about commodity versus not a commodity. And it's kind of in the same conversation. So a practice that is charging, 200 something or more per visit out of pocket, I could see more of those owners like me doing this in-person skills assessment. And most of the time the skills are there. But if a therapist was working, if there were a new grad and the first 3 to 5 years out of school, they were working in a hospital, they're just probably not going to have the manual therapy skills for orthopedics that an owner would expect in a non-commoditized out-of-network or cash practice where they're charging 200 something plus per visit, because they want to make sure that the patients, when that therapist starts seeing the current or previous patients, that those patients have a little bit more of a seamless experience and the hands-on quality is there, or they're able to do like test, retest, and try to get results or whatever. So I love how you stated like commodity versus not a commodity, and also that you own it, that you own that type of an offering. So kudos to you.
Yeah, I mean the reality is, when patients are referred to my clinic, and this goes deeper and deeper and deeper. When patients are referred to my clinic, not every patient wants to come. They come out of many of them come out of obligation. If they were genuinely seeking exercise as a solution to their shoulder pain, they probably wouldn't even come to me. They would probably go to a personal trainer or somebody else, or they'd already be in a gym. Like, how many CrossFit athletes do you know who have shoulder pain, who don't want to go to a therapist because they're already in the gym, they're already working out, they're already doing those things, and they want to self-treat? The reality is, for the bulk of my clientele, they're coming because they were told to come. And I shared, and I don't know if you saw it, there was a post and a comment in my total knee replacement support group from an individual who said, it was something along the lines of, what should I expect from the first physical therapy treatment after my knee replacement? And there were all these different comments and replies, some good, some bad. And then the same poster came back with the report saying, oh my gosh, it was horrible. The physical therapist pushed me so hard. I thought I was going to scream. I was practically in tears. And the last sentence was the most impactful. That person who had such a horrible experience said, there is no way I'm going more than once a week. Not, I'm not going back. Not, I'm finding another therapist. There's no way I'm going more than once a week. And it's like, that is the level of commitment that when your doctor says, go do this, patients, go do that. And so that's where it's really easy to go down that slope of, well, wait a minute, I don't even have to have good therapists. I just have to have a license and a pulse, and I can bill insurance. And it turns into this weird, machine that is just pumping out CPT codes. Now, none of us want that kind of business. I absolutely don't want that kind of business. But the reality is, when we're looking at larger scale, when we're looking at the entire country, not just our little kind of Facebook groups and our tiny population, I mean, that's the reality of what's out there. And so if somebody is going to come, whether they get good service or not, and I'm desperate to find therapists who can deliver at least acceptable services, I'm not going to worry about a lot of that stuff. I'm just going to run the machine to pump out CPT codes that get paid for insurance. Make sense?
It makes sense.
Sad, but
So
I think that's
so really quick. You're not looking to hire at this point.
I don't know, man. You had me all fired up. I was ready. I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. We're going to build a team. We're going to do all this stuff. And then I get into some of these Facebook groups and I see I see that side of it. And it reminds me why I haven't hired this, for this long. And it just reminds me, it just takes me back. And one of the things that we're going to talk about is paid communities. And I'm like, okay, so let me think about this. Oh, you know what? I think we might have talked about this at the end of last podcast, asking those questions, why, like, why do I have a business? Why am I trying to do this? Why do I have a business? Why do I charge for therapy in the first place? I would love to say the only reason I charge for therapy services is because it creates buy-in, it creates commitment, it creates investment on the patient side, and they get better outcomes if they pay for the therapy they're receiving. They value it more. But that's not the only reason why I charge. I charge because I need to make a living. I need to make income. I want to pay my staff. I want to keep the facility open. So then I'm like, well, why am I in business? I'm in business to make a profit, and I'm in business to do things that I enjoy. Is this the best business for me to be in? I was talking to somebody the other day who they want to open a chain of clinics. And I'm like, why would you ever want to open a chain of clinics? You have so much knowledge, so much skill. You can take your branding, your sales, skills, all of these things. You could make millions doing a product or doing something else with none of the risk, none of the liability. But they want to do it in therapy. They want to open a bunch of therapy clinics. And so I'm sure they can do it. I'm sure they'll do a great job. But I always think to myself, like, I stop myself. I'm like, why am I doing this? What am I trying to achieve? Is it going to be worth the effort that I'm putting in? What's what other opportunities am I giving up to go this direction? And so to your question, when you said, so now you're not going to hire, I have to think realistically. If I hire a person, I take on the commitment of providing for that person. It's not about that person providing for me. It's about, can I provide the salary and the expectations and the work environment that person wants? to feel fulfilled, to feel good joining my team, right? It's like adopting a child. Can I provide for that person? And I don't know that I can. And then if I'm like, well, I need the money, how can I make that money? That's where I start looking at paid communities. That's where I start looking at other assets that I have available. I have this huge total knee replacement support group that I'm not monetizing. I have a huge YouTube channel that I'm barely monetizing. And I'm like, what are the opportunities there? I would love for you to share some of your experience in that. And I know yours isn't therapist to consumer, yours is therapist to therapist, but still there's huge value in what you've done. What can we learn from you?
Yeah, I'm gonna go into it, but 1 second, I want to pause and say I have tried, and I'm going to get into it right now. Some, a tech startup, the coaching thing with Ron Miller. We're going to get into that, and those things like made some money, but it's not the kind of money that I made in my therapy practice. So the person that said to you that they're looking to make a chain of locations, and then you respectfully, Tony, you say, oh, well, there's all these opportunities and all that, and there's products and services, or you could start a YouTube channel like Athlete X or whatever, this and that.
Yeah.
Those things are less likely to be successful. The therapy practice, maybe it's not your model, maybe it's my model, maybe it's a different model, but that is more of a certain thing, in my opinion. So you could charge out of pocket, you could have an in-network model like you, Tony, you could do something different. But that person is looking at it as a way that I've kind of looked at it recently. And I did the tech startup with Vinicial, and, we had tech bugs and tech issues, and I killed it, squashed it, walked away from it. I still want to get back into it and get back into technology, but those things are not guaranteed. Yes, there's more upside. Yes, the margins are better. Yes, you can work remotely. I mean, maybe less employee count. I mean, there's so many positives, but that's because of the uncertainty of it. And there's some quote online of like, I don't want to get rich quick. I want to get rich for sure. And if that sounds like you, or you, the audience, then the main thing, a therapy business, even though it has higher payroll, like higher overhead, the issues that Tony's describing with like therapists complaining in Facebook groups, and I mean, a myriad of all these things. However, there's just so much demand for what we do, and across the country, and different models and all that. So yes, we're going to get into some of the technology and the paid communities and all that, but it's less certain, and it's more likely to fail, those things, versus if you start a therapy practice and it's a slog. I mean, both are challenging though. So that's my little intro. And so now I guess you want me to talk about the paid communities. So I don't know, maybe what year was this? 2014, 2015, 2016, around that time, I was doing Vinicial, HIPAA compliant secure messaging. I was selling it to practice owners so that therapists could text their patients without giving out their cell phone numbers. The patients could message the front desk and the therapist. The patient could be canceling or rescheduling or making appointments over Messenger, and the messages would go to the front desk person or the therapist or the owner or whatever. Anyway, had tech bugs, issue with my developer, my co-founder who I brought on for Sweat Equity, and walked away from it. And then around the same time is when I started doing home visits. And then with Ron Miller, we were doing this cash-based physical therapy coaching, mentorship, consulting, and he had digital courses. And I don't think, Tony, I don't think you knew this, but like I said last night over Messenger, like that I started the monthly recurring mastermind, and that morphed and changed over time. The initial launch, I don't remember when, but the initial launch was $1 trial for the first month. Somehow it took a while. It was between Stripe payments and ClickFunnels, landing pages, and all that. Somehow I made the order form, the checkout page. They would put their credit card in, and yes, it's $1 for the first month. And then month 2 and onward, I think was like $57 a month until they canceled. It was month to month. There was no contract. There was no lock-in or anything. Obviously we had, I don't know, I think we had probably 50 or 60 therapists that joined that first launch. And it was only in front of like my Facebook and like his Facebook or his Facebook group, which at the time was, now it's 5,000 members, but at the time I think it was maybe only 1,000 or 2 members or whatever. So we had a bunch of people put their credit card in for the first trial. We can go into it. We were doing like a live Zoom every Wednesday evening for like 1 hour where we would have a topic like this. And then we would also get questions, right? So whoever was live would be commenting, and like we would answer their questions first. And then if you were not, live, if you sent a question or you wanted to be answered, we would answer that last, or if we didn't get to it, it would be like the next live or whatever. And then I think we increased it to like $97 a month or whatever. I wanted more skin in the game, and we had therapists that were busy, and it wasn't that big of an investment for them, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of them started to cancel over time. We did it for several years, and it kind of morphed. And it was like, it went from cheaper to more expensive. And it was like, it was cheaper and more volume of people in the beginning. And then it was like more expensive and a smaller volume of people towards the end. And then eventually we were selling like 1,000 to, I forget the top number, maybe $3,000 or maybe $4,000 or $5,000. I can't even remember. I could look up maybe the payments, but we were selling, like, you would get some, weekly coaching from us and the community. And it was like other people that were paying this amount of money. So you were a little bit more serious. So it was like a smaller number of people. They would get some coaching calls or whatever with it. And it was like a year, but you were paying it up front, like paying a couple grand up front. And magically, Tony, that got them to show up more often on the coaching calls. They would also get some one-on-one calls, which obviously they would want to show up for because it was just them. But they would more likely show up to the group joint calls when they ponied up more money compared to the people when we started it, when it was like $1 trial. So we got more conversions on the front end with the $1 trial, and then a ton of people canceling. And I don't think Ron, I'm not sure if Ron even does that anymore, but anyway, that was Cash-Based Physical Therapy. I renamed his Facebook group. It's still Cash-Based Physical Therapy Business Success, I believe is still the name, but I rebranded that. What questions or feedback do you got for me on this paid community?
Well, I just think, and I'm sharing in the comments a link to a guy named Jay Klaus. He's just one of hundreds. He's got like a creator science YouTube channel, paid community. It's got like these things in general, I think, have a bad reputation. I think people join with certain expectations. Those expectations aren't fulfilled, and then they blame the person organizing. Aaron LeBauer had shared a video publicly. It's on YouTube. I don't want to quote exact numbers, but he talked about earning $3 million and having his community and people joining and then getting mad because it was a recurring fee and they weren't expecting it. I think the biggest fear that I've always had with something like this is, one, the personal commitment on my end. It's like, is this something that's never going to end? Is this something that I'm going to start and then for years I'm going to be committed to it and feel, just it turns into something I dread? And two, am I going to disappoint? And I remember for a decade, like researching masterminds and trying to understand how all of this works and what's the real value proposition. Now, sitting in the seat today, I was listening to an interview yesterday. I listen to these podcasts when I go on my runs, and the person talking yesterday, he's based in Switzerland. He was saying that he joined the Russell Brunson mastermind. I think it was $250,000 a year. I don't remember what the limit is. Like they limit the number of participants, but he was saying he never goes to the live events. He hardly ever shows up for any of the meetings. But if he makes even one connection through that mastermind group, he has the potential of generating $10 million in profit. So it's like, for him, he understood he's not going there for coaching and all the other things. He's going there to network and make connections with other people who are willing to pay $250,000 to be part of this community. in your mind, in your own words, as somebody who is kind of trying to deliver the most value you possibly could, who do you think is the perfect candidate for a group or a membership or a community like that? Like what is the right person looking to get out of it?
Meaning like therapy, a therapist, or just anyone that's looking to join any group?
Anything. It could be a patient looking to join a therapist's paid group, paid community. It could be a business owner looking, and we see, I mean, it's been around forever, right? Like there's the Chamber of Commerce, there's BNI, there's Kiwanis, there's all of these different paid groups, paid communities, all the way into like Sam Parr from My First Million has Hampton. I don't know how much they charge, but it's multiple tens, of thousands of dollars. But just what do you think people, the right person, what are they getting out of it that makes it worth the money they invest?
I think the right person is someone who does a little or some amount of research to understand, like, what is this thing about? Who's already in it? Do I kind of fit that ideal client customer? Am I going to be focused on following or either doing some of the homework or some of the live events or calls or whatever? Do I have the time and the interest to actually do those things, like whatever the things are, whether it's providing my financials or if it's doing like whatever they're teaching? Like, am I actually going to execute on some of the topics or the teachings and not make excuses? So, like, there's all these things out there, and like there's some great groups and communities, and then there's some others that I don't know, we probably look at and we're like, how are they so successful? Whatever. So I look at those and I say, there's got to be some amount of people that they can actually they can help. Like they truly, that group or that community, some amount of people they can actually really help. Do I fit that? Do my skills, my demeanor, my intention, my seriousness, my motivation, all those types of things, does that match these testimonials, these other people? And then you look at the testimonials, you can look up their Facebook, their LinkedIn, their websites, whatever. Look at the, see, like, do you kind of fit that type of ideal client customer? And do you have the time and the interest and the seriousness? And you're not going to make excuses, then that sounds like you. And then you should join that type of a group or a community. But yeah, you got to do a little bit of research up front to make sure that you fit whoever their ideal clientele is. But they're going to they might let you pay and join, and you might not be the ideal client or customer. And then you might get upset or frustrated, or you might cancel your membership or churn out or whatever in the first 3 to 6 or whatever months, unless you're locked in. And then if you're locked in, like you better do a lot more of your research up front. So anyway, to recap, I would say you have to kind of make sure, are you the right fit for that community or mastermind or whatever before joining? You want to do as much of that due diligence up front as possible.
I had a patient, because I know people watching this right now, they want to know how they could do this for their clinical practice. I had a patient, she had come to me. I had worked with her a couple times in the past. And the last time she came, she was highly motivated, very intelligent, mid-70s, but super fit, super active. And she told me she had been dealing with persistent pain. She had been dealing with some other autoimmune conditions. And she told me she was so desperate, she paid $7,500, $7,500 to buy into a medical doctor's online paid community. And basically for the $7,500, she got access to a closed Facebook group. I think she got one 30-minute Zoom call a month for a predetermined amount of time. I want to say, I think it was like 7 weeks or 8 weeks, with a coach, not the doctor, but a coach that the doctor had trained.
Genius.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, she was like, I'm no better off. I still have my persistent pain issues. They're trying to sell me all these supplements. They're trying to, tell me all these things that I already know. And obviously, like, I'm going to assume the person selling the package, they don't care. They got paid, they got their money. They believe they delivered the value that they promised, which technically they did. But like from my perspective as an outside observer looking at that, my heart would break knowing that somebody paid $7,500 and they felt like they didn't get any benefit from it. But I always try to reconcile that in my head, and I struggle so much. I've bought a treadmill that I never use. I've bought a force
And that
plate for the.
and
What are you
that
gonna say?
treadmill company doesn't care about you using
No,
the treadmill or not.
That's the thing. Like I bought a force plate. It was a $6,000 force plate that in my mind, I was going to do all the sport performance stuff and I was going to utilize all my knowledge as a CSCS and all of these things. I didn't use it a single time. I bought a body gym VMR calculator that you breathe into, and I was supposed to sell these for like $100 for an assessment. I didn't sell a single one. And I think the device was like $2,500. Over the course of 23 years in practice, I have wasted so much money uh, that when I think about making a promise or a commitment to a patient, like, hey, come join my total knee replacement community for $49 a month. If that person left feeling like they didn't get $49 of value, even if I gave them $4,000 of value, I think personally, I would still feel like I didn't hold up my end of the bargain. And I think that's why I struggle so much with trying to monetize my knee replacement group, because there's no tangible value on the other side. Like my Medicare group, no problem. I'll charge you $500 all day long because I'm giving you 9 hours of live training. You can take even a fraction of what I teach and turn it into an extra $50,000 a year. I am so convinced and so committed that, I know the value far exceeds the price. I think in since 2019, I've had 4 people that requested their money back. 3 of them, it was because I ran an ad once and they joined because I said I'm going to raise the price in January, and like that was the wrong clientele for me. I should never have done that. I should have just raised the price. But anyway,
Wait,
I do
so
think
they joined and then you did not raise the price and then they got mad at that? Is
no,
that
no,
it?
no. No, no. I used to charge 300. I raised it to 500. They felt compelled to join before I raised the price. But because they
That's
had
a
that
certain type of
urgency,
consumer that you attract.
they joined and then they never did anything with it. And so that's why they were like, I'm so sorry I did this. And I don't care. I'm happy to refund you. I would rather give you back the money than have somebody feel like they didn't get the value out of the time and the programming. But I do think paid communities, and there are so many amazing resources out there from people that have, millions of dollars coming in. I think paid communities for what we do as clinicians, I think that's the next like business venture, not just for me, but for us in general. It's like, okay, here's the upsell. It's not a wellness program anymore. That's what we used to sell. Now it's join my private Facebook group, get on my once a month, twice a month live Zoom call. I'm going to carve out this time and we're going to build a community. But I think what has to be done is a really rigorous pre-screening process, especially if you're doing high ticket. If you're doing anything over $100 a month, I think you have to really screen who is coming and why they're coming. And then I think you need to cultivate a culture within the community so that it's not all dependent on you, the therapist. Like in my total knee group, I have 3 or 4 members that are not paid members, but they're in there constantly engaging, constantly providing value, constantly answering questions and doing things that it's not prompted by me at all, but they're just so invested in that group, even though it's a free group, that they keep the lights on. They keep it going. Even if I don't engage for a month, I come back and engagement is as high as it's ever been.
Wow. All right. So really quick, let me break something down.
Yeah.
You have Total Therapy Solutions, the brick and mortar therapy practice, and then the Medicare, learnmedicarebilling.com course that you teach therapists, PTs, OTs, SLPs how to bill Medicare, and there's videos and all that. Both of those, so it's two different businesses, both provide value, correct?
Right.
But you said something that the course, you have no problem offering it, selling it, whatever, because if they learn this, that, if they implement a few small things, whatever, they immediately can generate an extra 25 grand, 50 grand, whatever. Maybe is it, and I want to ask, so is it because there's a financial return or a financial number tacked to it, that they hear at the starting line, they don't know Medicare billing that much. They don't know much at all, or maybe zero or whatever. They take your course, they start to learn it, and then they learn more, and then they ask questions, and then they learn even more, and then they make some mistakes with coding and billing, and then they fix those mistakes, they resubmit whatever, and then they learn even more. And then the next thing you know, they're making, I don't know, however many dollars legally and compliantly through Medicare billing.
Right.
Then you have your Total Therapy Solutions, you're evaluating, treating patients, your PTAs, whatever. That's also providing value. But because the outcome of therapy and the experience, I think because it's not objective, other than like, okay, my pain level was 5 out of 10 and now it's a 4 out of 10. We try to make some objective components, but it's not as straightforward as you take a course and now you can make more money through Medicare billing because now they learn Medicare billing, and before that they didn't know it. Both of your businesses provide value, but the one provides a financial return and a clear objective dollar amount. And then the Total Therapy Solutions, like every therapy practice, it's providing a lot of value, but you can't really measure it, and it's not a financial number. So is that why there's some difference between how you feel with your patients versus people taking your course?
Yes, 100%. It's just so much easier to say, I invested $500 and I've generated $5,000. Super easy, black and white, no brainer. But to say, I invested $500 and I've got a bunch of friends and I feel better, I think that's a hard thing for me to conceptualize in my head. Now, I know I've done it. I know that I've paid memberships. I know that I've joined, I don't belong to a golf club, but where I live, there's a golf club, and to play golf on that golf course, you have to pay I think it's $2,500 or $3,000 a year to have the golf membership, and then you still pay for the rounds of golf. There are tons of people in my neighborhood that gladly pay that every single year just so they can go hang out in the clubhouse and talk to their friends and have the right to pay, to golf there. And we've talked about that in our business. It's like, if you want a 10 a.m. appointment on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, join the executive membership, and then you get exclusive access to scheduling those time slots. I understand it from a business perspective, but on a personal, emotional, psychological level, I still continue to struggle with flipping the switch to say, this is what I should be doing. I should have a open community. I've got my Facebook group, which is totally free. I've got my YouTube channel, totally free. But I should have a paid community that's month to month, just like you had done in the past, that would allow people to come in and create a smaller tribe, Seth Godin, but that I would jump in once or twice a month. I would do a live. I would answer questions. I just had every single day I come into the clinic, I've got messages on the voicemail from people all over the world asking me, begging to pay me to answer their questions about knee replacements. And I'm like, I can't take the time for a one-on-one call like that. But these would be perfect people to come into the group, and I answer the calls, or I provide the education, not treatment, so that I don't violate the State Practice Act and all that stuff. I don't know. These are the limiting beliefs, and people love to talk about it, that I continue to have, because I just don't want to be in a position where I feel like I overcharged and underdelivered. I would always want to overdeliver and undercharge, even to my own detriment. Yeah, I'm not a good business owner.
Well, then I don't think stepping into a paid community is going to help that at all.
I don't know, but like, so this is the choice, right? Do I put myself out there in the market and try to hire a therapist? Do I make $100,000 investment that is potentially going to generate 20,000 in the first year, maybe 50 to 80,000 in the future? Or do I start a paid community for the resources that I already have readily available and just not hire more staff? Just bring the money in another way, and then let the myself and my remaining PTA just treat for fun, treat because we enjoy treating, build a group-based therapy clinic, and just get out of network with everybody and just do what we want to do because we know we're good at what we do.
Well, the paid community is going to require more of your time, you in front of the computer, videos, making a landing page, all that. I think compared to if you hire a therapist, you already have the new patient demand coming in. You have leads coming in that either want to or are told to go get therapy from your practice, whatever it is. That therapist already has the license, some amount of knowledge. You can do the skills assessment again from the front end of the episode. Whether you do it or not, like that requires less of you. It requires a little bit of you in terms of like the managing or, leading or whatever, but a paid community is going to require a lot more of you and your brain and your involvement, which I think will irritate you.
Yeah. Will Boyd, welcome to the show. Thanks for watching. He said that's a real struggle for so many. And truthfully, that's why I share these stories. I want people to understand and to see, like, even though I've been at this 20 plus years, even though I have some success behind me, I still struggle with all the same challenges and limiting beliefs and all of these things that a new grad stepping into the profession today is going to struggle with, or with a therapist that has 10 years of experience and wants to do their own thing. Like, these struggles never go away. But what I think is interesting is, and I don't want to make this my parting shot, but think about this. When I work out, Dave works out. Like most of us, we have some sort of exercise routine, whatever it is. We go into that exercise routine pretty much knowing we're going to fail, right? We that's the point of the workout, is you push the muscles, you push the cardiovascular system, whether it's not full on your muscle fatigues and you drop the weight, but pretty much you at the end of your workout, you are not stronger than you were at the beginning of your workout. You're absolutely weaker, you're more fatigued, you're depleted. That's the point of it. And so when somebody goes into business or somebody takes on a new challenge, Dean, I always reference Dean Volk. He is like the king of paid communities right now in our space. When somebody takes on that challenge, you do it knowing you're going to fail. And the more times that you fail, the more you're going to improve. So if I fail through 50 workouts, then I'm going to be stronger, healthier, better in some capacity.
Yeah. So Will Boyd, welcome on the show. Welcome. Good morning. So Will mentioned Dean Volk. I interviewed him about selling his practices and then talking to him about his sciatica relief now. I think it's sciaticareliefnow.net. And yeah, that's awesome. However, it's 100% wrapped around him. Like, Dean Volk, I don't think can ever sell respectful, and he probably won't want to, but I don't know how he would ever be able to have an asset around sciatica relief now if someone's going to buy his course and then resell it. Like it's wrapped around him, similar to any of these paid communities or courses. Versus, Tony, a therapy practice, which maybe yours, I know yours is very unique and different, but a lot easier to sell a therapy practice as an asset, maybe as an absentee owner over time, compared to one of these courses, communities, whatever, where you're like the figurehead and everything's wrapped around you.
So here's the thing, and these,
I didn't know this. Sorry, Will said he's got coaches doing the coaching now, so that's awesome. I still don't think he would ever be able to sell it, but the fact that he has coaches under him. That's awesome. I didn't know that. So kudos to Dean. I got to catch up with him because he's helped me a ton with like learning TMR and all that type of stuff. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Charlie Johnson, another great example. Like Charlie Johnson is crushing it. He's grown so much, he's developed so much, and he's kind of in a similar space. The thing that I always think about, and I'm not disagreeing with you, absolutely a clinic, a business like that is much easier to sell. But if I could kick off $1 million in profit doing a paid community that's virtually infinitely scalable compared to, you know, the work, time, and effort that goes into building a practice that's going to sell for 1 to 3 times profitability if it's in a growth phase, I'm going to take the community every single day. Like I would do, you know, something that kicks off a ton of profit right now that I could just shut down and not sell over something that has the potential for sale down the road, but isn't going to generate as much profit. And this all goes back to context. Like none of this is useful information absent the context of the individual. Like Dave said, for me to start a paid community, it's going to take extra work and more time and all this stuff. And I don't think it really will, because I already have the YouTube resource. I have the Facebook resource. I literally think I could just flip the switch, make the commitment to myself that I don't care my own insecurities. I'm going to face it. I'm going to move forward, and I'm just going to do it. And I'm going to put out an announcement. And I bet, depending on the price point, depending on what I'm trying to deliver, I bet I could sign up 100 individuals to join a paid community out of the thousands and thousands that I have access to, without a landing page, without any extra work going in, just a link and, you know, a commitment on my part.
So what do they get and how much?
I don't know. So we got to figure out. Maybe another episode.
I'm asking you.
Maybe another episode. What I'll do is I'll put it together. I've tried to force myself to do it multiple times. I've made public commitments multiple times. This will be one more time. Maybe on another episode, I'll tell you exactly what I'm doing. And I have looked at like Kelly Starrett. I looked at his course that he sells for total knee replacement. He's done an amazing job. I saw when he first launched it. I purchased it. I went back and looked at how much he's added to it. You know, there's precedent out there for what needs to be done. I just need to follow the model. I'll do it, and then we'll report back.
Sounds great.
What do you want to wrap up with? We have about 3 minutes. Parting shot?
Parting shot. Therapists out there, if you apply to work anywhere and the manager, owner, whoever has in the process an in-person evaluation, if you think that's a good practice for you to potentially work at, you're going to look at their Google reviews, their Glassdoor reviews, whatever. Look at what patients and therapists are saying about them. And if that checks all the boxes, then the in-person evaluation part, the skills assessment, whatever, just shut up and do it if you think that's a great place for you to go work. And if you are irritated with a skills assessment where a practice is going to ask you to come in as part of the evaluation and have you demonstrate your clinical skills, which go, like you said, Tony, communication, empathy, but then also some of the evaluation, the standard evaluation techniques to go through an evaluation, have a systematic way that we can kind of see your decision-making process through an evaluation, and then some hands-on therapy, some hands-on manual therapy, talking about a home exercise program, starting to develop a plan, whatever, asking some questions around maybe differential diagnosis, asking other questions around whatever, sleep, nutrition, diet, stressors in their life, whatever. Yeah, that's my parting shot. I just do the hands-on assessment, the skills assessment. But if you have an issue with it, then definitely don't even apply and don't even schedule that evaluation or that, you know, that interview with that practice. That's my parting shot.
Yeah. And mine is just going to be, you know, the road to success starts with failure. Every workout you fail at, that's what makes you better, stronger, healthier down the road. Business is no different. We just have to get comfortable with failing, learning from that failure, growing from that failure, and then eventually we hit that success. Dave, thank you so much. Guys that are watching, Bo, Will, John, everybody, thank you guys so much for being here. We'll catch you on Thursday, 8:30 a.m. All right, have a good one.